everyone seems really confused about what to do to grow. And what's really cool about understanding the timeless wisdom of selling is that you won't feel confused or overwhelmed with how to grow if you understand the fundamentals of how sales works. The number one most important thing that I learned in my corporate career, and I probably sold cumulatively over $100 million in sales. The first and most important thing is that trust is what moves sales. Trust is the foundation of whether or not someone will buy from you. People have blinders on and they think the only way to build a really successful business is to build a massive following online, when in reality, if you look at the small business world, businesses that are under $50 million, the vast majority of them have built their success offline. What's beautiful about these things, they're timeless, they're for forever, they're never going to not work. Today on the Kelly Roach Show, I'm breaking down strategies that I learned in my over a decade of selling in the Fortune 500 world that are still relevant and timeless today. And these are things that you can start using in your business, whether online or offline, today to have bigger and better success right away. So thanks for tuning in. If it's your first time stopping by the Kelly Roach Show, I help business leaders from around the globe build 7- and 8-figure businesses without sacrificing the most sacred parts of their life. I came from the Fortune 500 world where I started as an entry-level employee doing sales and service. And then I worked my way up. I was promoted 7 times in 8 years, became the youngest senior vice president in the company, and ended up building a team of 100 while running 17 unique and individual locations from White Plains, New York, down through the Carolinas. My entire career was built on understanding the psychology of sales and how to motivate, elevate, inspire, and lead other people to action. So everything that I'm talking about today is really the cornerstone of how we had record-breaking success year after year during my corporate tenure. And they're the things that I still see are absolutely true in the world of online marketing. And I know that this is the moment to remind you of these things because we're in a season of rapid and expansive change in the online world, and everyone seems really confused about what to do to grow. And what's really cool about understanding the timeless wisdom of selling and the things that remain the same regardless of the economy or the business climate that you're in is that you won't feel confused or overwhelmed with how to grow if you understand the fundamentals of how sales works, okay? And that's what I really want to dig into today. What remains the same? Okay. Well, what remains the same is that the number one thing, the number one psychological trigger or reasoning behind why people do or don't buy from you is trust. And there are very specific things that impact whether or not someone trusts you, whether you are the business owner or the entrepreneur or leader, or whether you are someone that is representing someone else's company. And we're going to talk about some of those things today. But the number one most important thing that I learned in my corporate career, and I probably sold cumulatively over $100 million in sale. I mean, I moved millions and millions of dollars in revenue. And that's why they allowed me to build my full-time business while I was still working as a full-time entrepreneur. As I was still working as an employee, they allowed me to build my online business because I was still producing tens of millions of dollars for the company and my performance still exceeded my peers, even though I was also building my own business. So there's weight to what I'm saying here is my point. Okay. So the first and most important thing is that trust is what moves sales. Trust is the foundation and the most heavily weighted indicator of whether or not someone will buy from you. And one of the things that I learned at 21 years old, starting out my sales career in corporate, was that top of mind awareness is the top driver of sales. And so trust is driven by top of mind awareness. Top of mind awareness says that people are most likely to buy from one of the last 3 service providers that were in front of them. And we all know that People buy businesses and they buy products and services from businesses that feel familiar. They feel familiar. They feel safe. And this is why you probably get frustrated so much of the time about businesses or people in the online space that you see building these massive companies and having these really high levels of success. Maybe what they do isn't even that special, or they don't even do it very well, but it's because they're known. It's because they're familiar. Now, you don't have to become a major influencer online to use top of mind awareness. In fact, for me, when I was selling for corporate, our headquarters were in the Netherlands and our bread and butter was in Europe. You see, our company had offices on pretty much every street corner throughout Europe, had one of the highest market shares, and that's really where the significant lion's share of our company was based. In the US, people couldn't even pronounce the name of the company that I worked for, let alone have an idea of who we were and what we did. So when I was going to create top of mind awareness, I wasn't doing that in the online space. I wasn't doing that as an influencer. I was doing that on a client by client, company by company basis by being wildly consistent and very frequent in the touches that I did to stay in front of them. And that is the key. Trust is built by many different components. We're going to talk about a bunch of different ones today that impact it, but top of mind awareness is definitely one of them, because top of mind awareness creates familiarity. Familiarity creates security. Security makes people comfortable spending their money with you. And so I want to remind you that you can do this on a small scale every single day, and you can build a wildly profitable multi-million-dollar business. People have blinders on and they think the only way to build a really successful business is to build a massive following online because they see big influencers doing that. When in reality, if you look at the small business world, businesses that are under $50 million, the vast majority of them have built their success offline. And so creating top of mind awareness is simply the process of you identifying the customers that you want to work with, and then building campaigns and structured processes to stay in front of them consistently. Being one of the last 3 people that do what you do that is in front of them consistently. It's really very simple. And this is why we spent this entire year teaching the online world about the Dream 1000, which is one of the core principles that we teach inside the virtual business school. And as you begin to build your Dream 1000, which is simply what I like to call your looking glass, it is like your crystal ball into the future of your business, because it's you putting names on paper in segmented lists by product, program, or service, by type of relationship. And it's you having a plan for how you are going to stay in touch with this person until they become a paying customer. So the Dream 1000 is like a crystal ball into your future because you have a plan, you have a structure, and you know who your future customer base is going to be. We are teaching this every single day inside the virtual business school. And just the process of getting started building your Dream 1000 is going to put rocket fuel behind your business because it's getting organized. It's simply organizing your Rolodex and having a strategic plan for how you're building relationships with people. It's a relationship management tool. So coming back to these timeless principles that I learned in corporate that still remain the most powerful and effective strategies to build your business today, top of mind awareness is at the very top of the list. And the easiest way to create top of mind awareness is to have an organized relationship management plan that you stick to every single week. And if you want to learn how we're teaching this, it's all inside the virtual business school. You can scroll down below this episode, click the link, and get started today for $59 a month. Absolutely no contract, and you will see the magic that our clients are getting to experience every day. Okay, number 2, we learn very quickly in corporate that the best buyers tend to contact you only when they're absolutely ready to buy. They are 85 to 90% sure already that they're going to hire you or that they're going to work with you by the time they respond to you. And this goes right back to point number one, which is why so many entrepreneurs struggle in the online space. And it's why 85 to 90% of businesses still fail. Why does this happen? Because the vast majority of entrepreneurs are always chasing new leads. And the problem when you're constantly chasing new leads is that they are at the top of your funnel. They're not at the point where they're ready to make a buying decision. And most people that are your best buyers, people that are going to be your $60,000, $70,000, $80,000 investors, people that are going to buy your mastermind or your highest ticket product, they're probably not going to respond until they're ready to buy something from you. So if you don't have a strong follow-up game and you don't have a relationship management system in your company, you are going to spend fruitless hours on a constant treadmill of chasing leads and hoping that people close in that first or second interaction, when that's not the natural psychology of how best buyers and strategic buyers make investments. So the second core principle that I want you to remember today is that your best buyers tend to make contact when they're just about ready to make a buying decision. And when they do finally respond to you, they're probably 85 to 90% sure already that they're going to invest in you. And this is why, going back to point number one of creating top of mind awareness and having a relationship management system to know who you want to work with and stay in touch with them on an ongoing basis, creating top of mind awareness, which is consistency, frequency, and being one of the last three people that pursue them. That's why that's going to be so powerful for you, because you want to be acquiring best buyers even in your trust building offer. Even when you're bringing in people for your lowest ticket product, your objective is that you are using your trust building offer to acquire the best buyers that you're going to then flip into your mid ticket, your high ticket, your year-long programs, your masterminds, and so on and so forth. Okay, which brings me to my next point. Number three. It's not about having a slick sales pitch. It's not about following a deck or having magic words or saying certain phrases, even though a lot of people want you to believe that if you just get your funnel right or if you just get your webinar pitch deck right, that you're going to make sales. Most of the time when it comes to selling, especially if you want to sell high ticket, it's really about asking questions and listening much more so than it is about talking and pitching. And in fact, one of the most frequent pieces of feedback that I've gotten over the years, as I've trained hundreds of salespeople over my corporate career and now my online career. I've had people doing sales in my own companies for me for over 10 years now. And one of the frequent pieces of feedback I always get is they're shocked and they say, Kelly, I get on a sales call with you and you barely say a word. And I say, yeah, because if you use the one conversation close method that I teach, you simply just ask questions. You let them tell you what their buying criteria is, what their motivations are, what they really, really want. You ask questions. You let them basically walk you through exactly what is going to get them to buy. And then you simply invite them to take that next step by giving them that confirmation and that clarity and that certainty that you can, in fact, help them to get that outcome. So the number one thing that you can do to increase sales in the DMs and not even need sales calls is to ask better questions, actually pay attention to the answers that you're getting, and then use them to move people to a buying decision. And a lot of people ask questions and then they just keep asking more questions and asking more questions. They're gathering all this intel, but they're not doing anything effective with it. They're not doing anything with it that actually leads to a sale. So you want each question to inform where you're going in the conversation next, and you want each question to build on one another. And what you're walking people through is them first self-identifying what their buying criteria are. And then secondly, what their, framework for making a decision is. Like, what are the things that have to be present? What do you have to feel confident in? What did you like or dislike about the last service provider that, you worked with? And then you get them to actually ask you, well, how can you help me achieve ABC, XYZ? And that brings me back to one of the easiest ways to do that, which is always using specific examples of client results and client success stories that match that person's circumstances. The number one question that people always have, even if they know that you are trustworthy and they believe that you can help people get results, their question always remains, will it work for me? But will this work for me? And so the thing that you have to be ready in your arsenal with at all times is give examples of people that were in their shoes, that had their circumstances, that faced those same challenges, that did in fact have success. And that is going to help you make sure that you can meet them where they are and give them confidence in making that buying decision. Okay. The next big thing that came from my time selling tens of millions of dollars in corporate that still applies today is that in corporations and in Fortune 500 firms, they put just as much focus and emphasis on expanding customer market share and in reactivating their past customers as they do in acquiring new ones. And this just doesn't happen in the online space. Period. I have surveyed thousands of entrepreneurs as they've come into our world, they've come into our programs, they've worked with us in various capacities. And I always ask the question, tell me about your process for reactivating your past customers. And again, I hear the same answer. I don't have one. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that you can make in business because the most expensive sale and the hardest sale is always a new customer. Whereas the fastest and easiest sale and the least expensive customer to acquire is a past customer. So if you want to grow your business more quickly with less infrastructure, with less ad costs, with less heavy lifting, then really putting as much emphasis on retaining and reactivating current and past customers as you do in acquiring existing ones is going to totally change the game for you. Okay. And I will say that these things, these sales principles, and I could go on and on about all of these different elements of what I've learned from corporate that I use even more in my businesses today because they're larger and, more infrastructure, more team, et cetera, et cetera. I use those principles from corporate even more so today than I did when I was in the early days just starting. But what's cool about what I'm sharing with you today is that these are principles that remain the same. They're never going to change. And like the one that we just talked about, for example, placing as much emphasis on retaining customers and reactivating past ones, for example, like that's never going to not be as important. That's never going to not be a crucial element of growth. And one of the biggest reasons why so many entrepreneurs burn out before they ever scale up in the online space is that they put all of their emphasis on customer acquisition. But the problem is when you overemphasize customer acquisition and you don't focus on the retention, renewals, reactivations, referrals, like the back end, the 4 R's on the back end of the business, what happens is your churn grows. And for most entrepreneurs, what happens to them is they cannot get their sales to outpace their churn. They cannot get their sales to outpace their churn. And so customers are leaving faster than you can acquire new ones. And that's why growth doesn't happen. Whereas in a business that has really high customer retention, they only have to acquire a very small number of customers incrementally to see consistent growth. And so sometimes the fast, big, crazy moves are not the ones that are going to get you the outcome that you want. And so having that balanced approach of really looking at it through the lens of retention, renewals, reactivations, referrals, that is going to elevate your entire strategy, and it's going to require less new customers to see that incremental and consistent growth in your business. Okay. The other thing is, and this is the big one, is that corporations and for us, one of our biggest focus areas from a sales perspective was always on growing customer market share. Market share is like what makes the world of business go round, right? When you look at how to grow in a flat or a down market, it's always taking market share from competitors, okay? And what you'll find is, although you think, oh, my customers are so loyal, they spend all their funds with me, they can't afford anything else. Most of your customers are investing in 2 or 3 or 4 people just like you for different elements of support. And so they're getting conflicting messages. They don't have a cohesive strategy. They're not getting the best results because they have all this fragmented support. They're getting multiple voices, multiple opinions, and it makes it more work for them to go multiple places to get these things. And that's because most entrepreneurs, especially in the online space, say, I don't want to seem salesy. I don't want to seem salesy. So they don't sell to their own customers. And then what happens is their customers either end up leaving because they get bored, or they go and get that additional support from someone else, which then lowers the results that you can get with your customer because now they're hearing conflicting opinions. So that voice in your head that's preventing you from growing and expanding market share in your own customers is actually putting your business at risk because it's opening the door to your competitors. And this goes to the trust building offer strategy that I've been talking about on the podcast over and over again. And you're going to hear me talk about it probably every week for a year or two until we get the message across to millions. But the trust building offer strategy is really about starting off with getting a very small piece of your customer's market share, building trust, demonstrating results, and then segueing that into building and growing market share in that client. So it very much is reverting back to these core timeless principles that we know work in the world of business, which is getting your foot in the door, getting that yes up front, and then segueing that yes into strategically growing your market share in that client. And let me tell you, it is so much easier to focus on growing market share in your clients, the ones that know you, like you, and trust you. So much easier to grow market share in your current customer base than it is to go out and to have to acquire a new prospect to get dollars in the door each day. So in conclusion, every single one of these things that I talked about today, from top of mind awareness, driving consistency and frequency, to the fact that best buyers usually don't get in contact until the time that they're ready to buy, to making sure that you have focus on listening and asking questions versus pitching, persuading, and pushing in the sales process, making sure that you have an equal balance on customer acquisition and customer retention, renewals, reactivations, and of course, making sure that your core focus in the market of today is expanding customer market share. Get your foot in the door with a trust building offer, immediately segue into your upsell machine, and then use that as a mechanism to take that small spend in a customer and multiply and duplicate it for scale. All of these things that we talked about on the show today are easy to implement. They generate immediate results, and they're things that you can do today without more team, ad spend, or infrastructure to grow your business. What's beautiful about these things, they're timeless. They're for forever. They're never going to not work. So if you don't know what to do today in order to see your business grow more quickly, I just walked you through. This might be one of those episodes that you want to listen to more than once. And if you know an entrepreneur that needs to grow their business, that wants and desires to grow their business more quickly, do me a solid and share this episode. I would be so grateful if you helped us to expand the listenership of The Kelly Roach Show by sharing this episode with someone that you know has the desire and the dream to build a bigger and more successful business. I'm going to link multiple resources down below, including the Virtual Business School, where we teach entrepreneurs from startup all the way over 8 figures how to make daily sales on social media. We teach you how to implement the Dream 1000 and the the Miracle Hour so that you have a relationship management system that drives your business forward, regardless of the economy, the algorithms, or what platforms are doing. And the Miracle Hour, which is your daily sales system that allows you to make sales in an hour a day, every single day. And if you're interested in learning more about how to build your business with timeless principles that last forever, the Virtual Business School is the perfect blend of what's working now in online sales and marketing and timeless billion-dollar strategies that I learned in my time in the over a decade that I spent building businesses within a corporation. I can't wait to see you on the next episode. As always, thank you so much for tuning into the Kelly Roach Show, and we'll see you back here soon. Thank you so much for listening to The Kelly Roach Show. If you enjoyed this episode, do me 2 solids. Subscribe to the show so you never miss an episode, and leave us a review so other people can find the life-changing content that we share here. We're on our way to #1, and we need your help getting there. Thanks so much for being a part of the community and for tuning into the show each and every week.